And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network and wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Monday morning. Finally, this NFL season is over for the Jets and Giants, and we don't have to talk about their games any longer. We'll talk about their futures, who's staying, who's going, and who is coming here. And who are they going to draft? And now we know that the New York Giants have the 3rd overall pick, the Jets with the 7th overall pick, and the New York Jets' top target, Mike Vrabel, probably going to New England after the Patriots fired Jerod Mayo after 1 year. So is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Who is their GM? Who is their head coach? We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, but today really is the day that we turn the page and look forward. And it seems like we're not going to get any Black Monday updates on Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen today as they'll be meeting with John Mara. And it appears that both of those guys are staying. But after this season, anything is possible. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. I'm doing well. You know, I'm happy for Aaron Rodgers, first and foremost, because I've been in his shoes. You know, your last game, if in fact that is his last game, he goes out with a bang. I know Jet fans, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, for him and his illustrious career, it's a great way to go out. It's a great way to get your 500th touchdown pass and be able to celebrate with your teammates. And even in a game that didn't mean anything for them, and it turned out for the Dolphins because of what Denver did to Kansas City, you could see that there is genuine elation when you do score touchdowns and you do win games regardless of when you win them or how you win them. So, I was happy for him. It's probably going to be the last time we see him in a Jet uniform, and I'm sure many Jet fans are ready to turn the page. We have 4 job openings now. Of course, it's the Jets. The Patriots are added to that list, the Bears and the Saints. I do believe, and I think you correctly with your assessment, that Jerod Mayo up in New England probably got fired because Mike Vrabel was interviewing with the Jets. And we all know how much Bob Kraft loves and respects Mike Vrabel, both as a player and as a coach. And we remember when he was the Titans head coach, he got elected into the Patriots Hall of Fame and went up there during his bye week and put the red jacket on and everything else. And
he also said during his speech, he goes, "We have a game to win," because they were playing in the Hall of Fame game, the Patriots. We have a game to win.
Yes.
Talking about the Patriots.
Right. Well, I mean, so you know that there's and there's all this back channeling that goes on this time of year. So there are a few agents that represent coaches. They represent general managers, and they probably are the ones that are in contact with the 33rd team. That's the team that Rick Spielman and Mike Tannenbaum are running as the search firm for a lot of these different teams and to try to get these guys jobs. So there's always back channeling going on. There's always talks going on. And I would think that Mike Vrabel would be at the head of the class, depending on which team would want him to be their head coach. And then there's also Ben Johnson from the Lions, who I'm sure is either looking at Jacksonville or Chicago. And then lo and behold, because of last night's performance, once again, I think Aaron Glenn is going to get quite a few interviews. I think people are going to be really impressed with what his defense was able to do last night against your Vikings, and also how he's been able to keep this defense together. Now, their road to the Super Bowl got a lot easier because they get the bye. Maybe they'll get a player or two back, and it's going to be really difficult to go into that building and beat them and keep them from getting to New Orleans.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn's one of those names that, of course, becomes a lot more interesting now that Vrabel is off the board. But it was Vrabel, it was Gruden, it was Flores. Those are the guys we were talking about that immediately command that respect, that also have head coaching experience in the past. But as impressive as Aaron Glenn is, and there's not a bad word that I could say about him, I just cannot bring in a guy who is a first-time head coach to the Jets. I can't do it.
I still agree with you, man. I 100% agree with you.
And I don't want to minimize his candidacy, and he should be getting a job. He should be getting interviews.
He may get the Saint job.
And I hope that he does, and I hope that he gets hired. I just think that the Jets, where they are with this organization right now, need somebody with experience and not somebody learning on the job. And also, I mean, Aaron Glenn's personality is great for where he is, and maybe it would work here. I think it would work in New Orleans a hell of a lot better than it would in New York. You just want someone to walk into Florham Park where there's no doubt where the buck stops, and I'm not sure if Aaron Glenn is ready for that right now.
I think even though right now as we talk, the Jaguar job is not open, but there is so much chatter and so much discussion about Ben Johnson going to the Jaguars. Because I think the Jaguars, the thought process and what has been written, you could read the tea leaves again, is that they are going to wipe out everything down there. Trent Baalke, Doug Peterson, and if that is the case, then Ben Johnson is able to bring with him the GM of his choice, which I don't necessarily know. The Bears are not going to do that because Ryan Poles is in place.
Right.
It doesn't sound like the Patriots are going to do that because Elliott Wolf is in place to handle the roster. The Jets obviously are one of those teams because they don't have a general manager right now.
Maybe he brings Ray Agnew with him, who's in the front office there in Detroit, who's been chattered about as being a GM candidate here as well.
Exactly. So, and the Saints already have Mickey Loomis as their GM, so they're not going to be changing there either. So, I think that's why the Jaguars make the most sense. It seems like for Ben Johnson, but and that's where most of the pundits believe that he's going to end up going, and we won't know any of this stuff because he's obviously got one of the most successful teams. You saw that offense last night go against your Viking defense, and I thought Sam was a little bit hyped last night.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was just.
He was off.
It was bad. I'm not going to sit here and crush the guy's had an amazing season, but he turned into a pumpkin last night, and he was jittery. He was overthrowing guys. He wasn't confident in himself. Was the least confident I've seen him play all season long. Wasn't getting rid of the ball. Didn't trust himself. And down in the red zone, it just crushed him. I mean, and they were. Look at the score and you think they're getting their brakes beat off. And in the end, the 31-9's 31-9. But they had all those opportunities down in the red zone.
They had a million.
They went
a million opportunities.
Right. They went down. I mean, when we're talking like inside the 5, and twice they went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. The other times they were kicking a field goal, and it was also a moment in the game, 17-9, where Van Ginkel has an opportunity to go pick 6 like he did against both the Jets and the Giants this year as he jumps the wide receiver screen to St. Brown. Ball is in his hands with nobody in front of him. I'm like, here we go again, and then just drops the ball. So, I mean, Sam just wasn't any good.
If you play the Lions, do not throw a wide receiver screen to Van Ginkel's side.
Yeah. If you play the Vikings,
that guy. The Vikings. Yeah. That guy is just amazing. That guy he reads that play so perfectly.
Yeah, but listen, the Lions obviously earned it. They were the better team. They beat the Vikings twice. The defense was much maligned going into this week. You saw both Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn get angry when a reporter asked him, "Is this defense good enough to win the Super Bowl?" I think that jacked them up even more so, and they played one of their best games defensively of the year when the quarterback played one of his worst. So,
and the other thing too, again, Jared Goff, does read the blitz pretty well, and he gets rid of it. And Sam, a couple times he read the blitz well, he just didn't finish the play. And you saw a number of high balls, and I know Chris Collinsworth was talking about it last night. When he is off, he tends to be high. He tends to be too jacked up. And I felt like, especially early in that game, because he had Hawkinson down the middle.
Yeah.
He had Justin Jefferson twice for touchdowns. If those plays, obviously, are made, then you have a totally different set of circumstances.
He's been making them all year. I mean, and that's why it was so shocking is that, you'd not seen him. 18 of 41. It's just, God, it was bad. I would
say there were probably about 7 in there of the incompletions that if they are hit, it's probably 34-31 or 31-28 or something like that.
But listen, there's no denying, though, that the Lions earned that 1 seed, and they should have the 1 seed because they're the better team, and they beat the Vikings twice.
Just like the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. So, and it does suck when you're 14-3. You got to go on the road, and, of course, it's worst-case scenario because – the Vikings are going to play the Rams, the other team that they lost to this year. They lost to the Lions twice, and the Rams won, so there's 3 losses. And it's on Monday Night Football where, I that's like the worst situation for me. But whatever. It's not about me this morning. So it's about the Jets and the Giants and the draft order.
Don't lose your activation, please.
Listen.
Did you see what Dan Campbell said to Kevin O'Connell after the game?
No, I didn't. I mean, that game was off 24-9. I was done.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
So after, obviously I got to stay up and watch this whole thing. Yeah. So Dan Campbell says to Kevin O'Connell, see you in 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that's cute and everything, but
What do you mean that's cute and everything?
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it'd be nice.
Did you like the way that Brian Daboll coached the game yesterday against the Eagles?
What, just basically sort of tanking without tanking type of thing?
Yeah, he'll never admit it, but there were some decisions yesterday that were made that were very interesting.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
and that's probably it reminded me of a guy that probably felt like he was pretty safe in his job.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, and Malik Neighbors gets a record, then he comes out of the game. So, yeah, I mean, I don't. I think that that these guys are probably coming back, barring some. Here, I guess here would be the thing that would worry me if I were Brian Daboll. What do the Tishes think? Because I feel like John Mara is so close to the football side, but the Tishes deal with the business side a lot more. And I feel like they could come in and be like, we're really bringing these guys back. Like we can't, there is no juice whatsoever. Plus, we lost the number 1 overall pick. Like, you really want to go into an offseason flatlining like this again? So it's just that if the Tishes are on board from the business side of keeping them, then it's a lock. But that would be the one thing if I were Brian Daboll. Like, I wonder what they think. Because I feel like I got John Mara on my side. But do I have the Tishes on my side as well? Which is something that no one ever talks about, by the way. I know. And I think it's something to bring up, quite frankly.
I would think that the Tish side of things, which really is 49%, right?
Yeah.
I would think the Tish side of things are pretty frustrated, but probably knew when they bought their half or their 49% of the team or however much they have, that part of it came along with, hey, we're a part of the team. We're not part of the decision making. But I would also think if you want to be a good partner, you have to involve them in all decisions. And I would think that one of the Tish representatives would be in meetings today with both Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll.
Right. And I just that's the only, like, the football side of it. I can make a case for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. But here's the thing I don't understand is why all these articles have been written about how if one of them goes, it's going to be Brian Daboll and not Joe Schoen. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because if I'm looking at the job that these guys have done, and I say who's done a worse job, quite frankly, it's been the general manager with the
players,
picks.
Yes.
And to me, like, it's like if you're going to keep them both, you keep them both. If you get rid of one, you get rid of the other one. So, I mean, having Joe Schoen stay and then Brian Daboll leave, that wouldn't make much sense to me at all. And if they end up firing Brian Daboll, who the hell is going to be the head coach? I would have no idea where to even start with the Giants and who their head coach would be next year and what would be the fit with this group. I mean, I can't even figure out right now who the Jets coach is going to be. I know who I want, but they're going to hire a guy who's going to be out of here in 3 years too. They just are. Unless they somehow convince Mike Vrabel that the Jets are a better situation than the Patriots, which they're not going to. He's going to the Patriots.
Well, the Patriots have 2 young quarterbacks. I don't know if you saw any of their game yesterday. You probably did.
No, I did because I bet the under.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That went over.
And it went over, yeah. I'll tell you what, Frank.
Because I thought Joe Milton was going to go out there and be terrible, and the guy was unbelievable.
All right, so this is what Joe Milton has that, like I was talking about, Shedeur Sanders doesn't have. Now, Shedeur, I will say, has his dad. He's been around it his entire life, much like Patrick Mahomes was around Major League Baseball. And I do think that Shedeur in his body feels like he's not going to be intimidated. Like he's ready for the next step. He's ready for the next conquest. And I do believe that part of it does exist for Shedeur. But what doesn't exist for Shedeur that you saw with Joe Milton yesterday, Joe Milton is like Anthony Richardson. He is explosive as an athlete. You saw the backflip after he scored the touchdown.
Yeah.
So he's explosive as an athlete. He ran 4.5 40. He's 6'5". He's 240 pounds, and he could throw the ball 85 yards. All right, so he's got maybe, and I was talking to Phil during this game yesterday. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, it absolutely was shocking. And, you know, he had that one, it's such a shame. He had that touchdown called back where he was running all over the field and dodging tackles and then throws a laser to the front left corner of the end zone and was caught, and it was called back for a holding penalty, I think. But this guy, the most impressive thing to me, obviously, the running and the athleticism, but how he was able to, when there was pressure on him, keep his eyes downfield and still make throws. Like, his first reaction wasn't to just take off and run. It was to get away from the defender and still look down the field to try to make a play with his arm. I mean, I would, if I were a general manager, I'd be all over that guy.
Right. So this guy was a 6th-round draft pick for the Patriots in last year's draft. So they drafted Drake May with the 3rd overall pick, and then they drafted Joe Milton in the 6th round. That's a great pick. To me, the best pick in the entire draft was the Atlanta Falcons and Michael Penix. That, to me, is the best pick in the draft. And the reason for that, again, you saw it yesterday. The Falcons' defense looks like they have no idea what they're doing. Raheem Morris is supposed to be a defensive coach, and that defense is a disgrace. And they should be in the playoffs. They should have won their last 2 games, and they lost their last 2 games to Washington and Carolina. And Bryce Young had a very strong game yesterday. So a strong ending to the season for Bryce Young, who will end up staying with Carolina, and they'll give him another year, and they'll see if they can build off of what he was able to do because he finally looks relaxed. But Michael Penix, when they took him, obviously everybody went nuts because they signed Kirk Cousins to this big deal and everything else. And then all of a sudden you see this kid on the field, and you're like, man, this guy, he's got it. He's definitely got it. He's played 3 games, and all 3 games they should have won. They didn't lose because of him. They lost because of their horrific coaching and defense for the Atlanta Falcons. But they should have made the playoffs, and they didn't. And unfortunately for the Bengals, they don't make the playoffs either because of the Denver Broncos whitewashing Carson Wentz and the Kansas City Chiefs, who didn't come to play at all yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, and now we're talking about a draft where you have said you don't like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward as top picks, and you've got Michael Penix, who the Giants had an opportunity to draft, Bo Nix, who the Giants had an opportunity to draft, and also we'll see if J.J. McCarthy is anything. They had an opportunity to draft him as well. And all 3 of those guys, I think, if you put them in this draft, might get drafted ahead of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
All right, let me ask you this question: If Sam Darnold, let's say the Vikings lose this Monday night in L.A., is he coming back? I know you still think he isn't coming back no matter what he does, unless he goes to the Super Bowl and they win the Super Bowl.
Well, he's definitely not. I think even if they win the Super Bowl, he might not come back. I got to be honest with you. I just think that they are dead set on having that rookie salary at quarterback and going forward there. But no, absolutely not if they lose this game on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah,
I mean, it's 100% lock.
It's amazing because I was talking going into the last 3 games, meaning the Packer game last week, the Lion game this week, and then next week's playoff game. Now it's next week's playoff game. It's not the number 1 seed, but how important these 3 games are going to be for a decision to be made as to whether or not he stays there.
Yeah, I just really, really think that this has been the plan. And if he ends up going on some ridiculous Eli Manning type run on the road in the playoffs and going to win the Super Bowl, maybe you have that discussion, obviously, but it's going to be very difficult for them. That's why I kept saying, going into this game, it's a difference between going to the Super Bowl or, losing in the divisionals. It's just going to be tough.
The Jets are going to need a quarterback. They're not bringing him back here. The Titans? That makes a lot of sense, right?
Ton of sense. Well, they are also now the number 1 overall pick, so how much do they like one of these guys, and do they love Shedeur?
I'll tell you what, man. I see, if I'm the Titans, I'm auctioning this pick off because you need more players. You need better players. You need more draft picks. And maybe you get a player or 2 for whoever who would want this. Maybe the Giants would want it. Who knows? But like a team like the Raiders, that to me seems where Shedeur should go because that's, I don't know, for some reason I just feel like that fits. And I've been saying that for months.
But they're
months
picking,
and months.
6th?
Yeah, but they may be willing to give you, switch the picks with you this year, give you next year's first-round pick and this year's second-round pick and maybe even a first-round pick 3 years from now. I mean, this is a way that you have to build a team. If you're a team like the Titans, you have to do everything you possibly can to put it out there that you're taking a guy that you think another team wants. You're not so really sold on him, but you have to just keep fluffing him up and then all of a sudden somebody's going to overpay for that draft pick. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was hoping the Giants would do if they ended up with the number
and
1
now they're
pick.
on the other side of it. Now they might be the team that ends up trading all the picks to go up and get a quarterback.
Don't do it.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.